Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 101 based on novel. Drink. The golden light in Xiao Yan's eyes was fierce, and different fires surged up and down. He stepped on the cold wind and walked step by step towards the depths of the deep stream. Hoo! As Xiao Yang stepped out step by step, the cold wind blowing from the deep stream below became more and more terrible. After Xiao Yang took the 100th step, the cold wind gushing from below like a fountain once again made Xiao Yang feel a strong pressure. Even Xiao Yang's body standing on the void could not help shaking slightly. Damn it! The closer we get to the hinterland, the more terrible the wind pressure here. If we continue like this, I'm afraid even the Dragon Phoenix ancient armor can't resist it. Feeling the increasingly strong cold wind around the body, coupled with the rapidly losing power in the body at the moment, Xiao Yang's heart can't help feeling dignified. A moment later, when Xiao Yanqiang wanted to take a half step forward again under the wind pressure, the terrible wind pressure made Xiao Yang's body fly back uncontrollably until 100 feet away. When he stopped, Xiao Yang raised his head with a dignified face. His eyes swept over the sky above, but he found that, unconsciously, the night had passed, and the black clouds that had enveloped the world had gradually turned white. Xiao Yang frowned and took a deep breath. He wanted to rush forward again, but the next moment, when Xiao Yang started, Xiao Yang's face suddenly changed. There are three terrible smells in his soul perception. They are flying towards him. Looking at this momentum, I'm afraid they can appear in front of him in a moment. Xiao Yang has no doubt about the owner of these three smells. These three people must be the three overlords in the depths of Shalin Mountains, Tianying, Yangsha and Xionggang. Damn! Why did you catch up so quickly? Aware of the three people behind him, the look on Xiao Yang's face could not help changing again. He scolded in his heart. His slightly weak body suddenly shook, and the body of King Kong Glass was displayed in an instant. In the twinkling of an eye, Xiao Yang had once again turned into a King Kong giant god. His huge foot soles stepped on the void and made every effort to rush forward quickly. While Xiao Yang noticed the three people, the three Tianying people in the distance behind Xiao Yang also noticed Xiao Yang's breath. Immediately, a look of anger appeared on their faces. Asshole! It's really the boy's fault. It's too late to regret now. I'd better hurry over. I hope it's not difficult to solve this time, otherwise I'll unload the boy's bones. The angry scolding voice in the Yang lion's mouth just fell, and the Sky Eagle also opened his mouth angrily in a very angry tone. As for Xionggang, although he didn't speak, his face was extremely gloomy. Obviously, the anger in his heart was no less than those two people around him. A moment later, the three figures had come to the deep stream. As for Xiao Yang, he was also very unlucky. He happened to be sent back by the cold wind. However, who calls the terrible cold wind? Even if Xiao Yang tries his best, he still can't pass through it in the end. He can only be blown back again and again in the sprint. This time, I happened to meet the three Tianying who had just arrived. After the three people's eyes swept over Xiao Yang, they fell on the deep stream below. Xiao Yang felt that the three people wanted to bite people's eyes, and couldn't help feeling a chill behind them. Their steps retreated slightly and imperceptibly. Xian Chongkai also appeared in the palm behind Xiao Yang. Seeing the huge deep stream in front of them, the pupils of the three people suddenly contracted to the size of the tip of a needle, and the three faces immediately became gloomy. The huge deep stream in front of them seemed to be far beyond their expectations. If in their imagination, this deep stream is just a stream, then what appears in front of them now is a wide river, and the cold wind gushing out of it is like the surging flood. Bastard! Did you do all this? The burning lion stared at Xiao Yang angrily, and said in a hoarse voice. If I said no, would you believe it? Xiao Yang shrugged helplessly. He didn't deny it. Boy, what a death wish. Toast without penalty. You'll stay here today. The burning lion angrily scolded. The sound sounded like a beast roaring. When the voice fell, the body shape of the burning lion also suddenly shot at Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang held a heavy ruler in his hand. His huge golden body suddenly turned in place, and his backhand waved hard at the latter. The flame divides the wave ruler. Lion Gang fist. They roared together, and in an instant, they had touched each other. The terrible energy after wave destroyed those cold winds in an instant. The sky where they were was also calmed in this short moment. A blow fell, and the burning lion forcibly twisted his body in the void, followed by a punch, and blew out again. At the same time, The heavy ruler in Xiao Yang's hand also touched the oncoming Yang lion with the cold wind pressure. Roar! Just as Xiao Yang was having a fierce collision with the burning lion, Xiong Gang, who followed him, suddenly gave a startling roar, waved a pair of huge fists, like a bull colliding, and rushed at Xiao Yang with extremely overbearing power. Only a few times, Xiao Yang obviously fell into the disadvantage. But this is not enough. While Xiao Yang is struggling to support, the eagle on the other side also moves. His sword is sharp and kills Xiao Yang. One person faced 3 9.5 emperors, and the situation in the field changed in an instant. With the addition of Tianying, Xiao Yang immediately felt a great increase in pressure. Helpless, he had to use the 6 harmonies swimming ruler to resist on all sides without fighting back. Boy, I told you to leave, but you didn't listen. Since you don't want to leave, stay here forever. The fire lion's moves are fierce, and each fist and palm is a deadly killing move. Xiong Gang's iron fist is as hard as a rock. The terrible force numbs Xiao Yang's palm holding Shen Chongkai, and the movement in his hand gradually slows down. Tianying's attack made Xiao Yang dare not be careless. The fierce attack of the latter, once there was a flaw in Xiao Yang's Liuhe swimming ruler, the latter would seize the opportunity and hurt Xiao Yang. Bang! Finally, in the endless struggle, Xiao Yang was helpless to lose first. Liuhe Yushan ruler was forcibly broken by the bombardment of Yang Lion and Xiong Gang. Without the resistance of Liuhe Yushan ruler, Tianying's longsword immediately found a gap. In the twinkling of an eye, Xiao Yang's body was pierced with several holes by the invisible long sword, and the red blood suddenly burst out. Xiao Yang's face suddenly turned red, puffed, and a big mouthful of blood gushed out his uncontrollable anger. The whole person's breath also suddenly became weak. While Xiao Yang's body was hit and flew out, the terrible cold wind behind Xiao Yang was like a sharp blade. It hit Xiao Yang's back again. When it fell, Xiao Yang's strength doubled and immediately fell into serious injury. Pooh! The blood gushed out of his mouth. Xiao Yang's whole body showed a grey color like a dead man. His thin body finally fell uncontrollably to the deep stream below. Seeing this, the burning lion wanted to catch up and give Xiao Yang the last blow, but the eagle stopped him and said, "That's enough. When this trouble is solved, go to him to settle the accounts. Now the most important thing is this gap." When the voice fell, the eagle looked at Xiong Gang, but found that the latter was looking suspiciously at the deep stream below. In addition to being dignified, his eyes were also filled with a strange color. Are we too subjective? 2 months later, outside the Shalin Mountains, Xiao Yang was carrying a mysterious ruler and flying between the mountains and forests with great speed. Every pause in the air would leave a solid shadow in place. With the appearance of the shadow one after another, the dense forest behind Xiao Yang was suddenly destroyed by a terrible force. Immediately after that, a huge warcraft with infinite killing intention, chasing Xiao Yang angrily, several residual shadows along the way were ruthlessly torn up by it with sharp corners. Bastard boy! Give me back my Kui Lingji quickly. The giant beast with the shape of a hill rushed forward at random, and his mouth couldn't help but howl bitterly. Since the human in front of him stole his Ganoderma lucidum a week ago, this guy not only didn't leave, but took Ganoderma lucidum as a guide all day, deliberately made him furious and chased Xiao Yang day and night. In the end, because of Xiao Yang's extremely fast speed, every time he would be instantly separated by Xiao Yang at the most critical moment, and then he can only retreat back with full of anger. This matter, while making the monster angry, also had a sense of sadness. I really don't know who he offended in his last life and how he met such a hateful guy. Hey, if you want to get back your Quilingji, come after me. As long as you can catch up with me, I will not only return you Quilingji, but also give you an imperial pill. The voice came out of the beast's mouth, but Xiao Yang smiled. Instead, he used the imperial pill to tempt the warcraft behind him again. In the war 2 months ago, Xiao Yang was defeated by Tianying. Xiao Yang, who was seriously injured, fell uncontrollably towards the deep stream below. At the last moment before he was unconscious, Xiao Yang thought he would really fall into the deep stream, but unexpectedly, Guyo finally shot in time. While Tianying's 3 people focused on the deep stream, Guyo quickly controlled Xiao Yang's body and left there. After experiencing that, Xiao Yang also clearly realized his shortcomings. In terms of Xiao Yang's overall combat power, he can fight with the 8-star-and-half Emperor alone, but as for the 9-star-and-half Emperor, it is a little difficult for Xiao Yang. Of course, you can cultivate your strength slowly, but now Xiao Yang's Tianjue step has become a big problem. Originally, with Xiao Yang's confidence in Tianjueba, no one should be able to catch up with the Emperor. However, after this incident, Xiao Yang really found that his Tianjueba was far from what he really needed. Take Tianying for example. Even if the speed of the latter is fully displayed with Xiao Yang's Tianjua step, it will never be the opponent of the latter. If Xiao Yang fights alone with him, Xiao Yang will have no hope of winning without the help of any external force. Therefore, although Xiao Yang thinks he has superior combat power, it is only for the 8-star and half Emperor. As for the 9-star and half Emperor, and even the more terrible fighting Emperor, Xiao Yang is in trouble. This time, when finding this Optimus Warcraft, Xiao Yang also hopes to use the power of the latter to win with speed without launching an attack. Of course, Xiao Yang wants to be relaxed, but things are really relaxed. The strength of this Optimus Demon Beast is only good enough to reach the 8-star and a half Emperor. At Xiao Yang's current speed, it is difficult for ordinary 9-star and a half Emperors to catch up, not to mention this guy. After a week of boring repetition, at this moment, Xiao Yang was also extremely stunned to find that in this boring chase, not only his speed was not improved, but the Optimus Warcraft behind him, driven by his anger, the speed of the latter was increasing rapidly. This scene, which was completely opposite to the original idea, also made Xiao Yang feel helpless for a time. He paused. Xiao Yang turned his head and looked behind him. Optimus Cow Warcraft had rushed again. This time, seeing Xiao Yang's body stopped again, Optimus Bull Demon was suddenly angry. When he rushed forward, his huge body suddenly shook, and there was a roar like thunder in his mouth. At the same time, his body rushed towards Xiao Yang at the fastest speed. Looking at this speed, it seemed that it was more than twice as fast as before. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yang slightly felt speechless, glanced at his mouth, immediately stepped on the void, twisted his neck, and heard a clattering sound of bone collision. His mind moved. Xiao Yang's emaciated body turned into a King Kong god. His feet stepped on the ground and his huge fist was clenched. When the bull rushed, he hit the latter's head hard. Bang! When Xiao Yang's fist fell on the top of the bull's head, the terrible giant force suddenly poured out, just like a thunderclap. Under Xiao Yang's fist, the forward speed of Qingtian Nyomor was also forcibly stopped. The whole head was hit on the ground by Xiao Yang's fist, and duly poured down the head of the bull. At that time, the earth below the two collapsed rapidly, and the bodies of Xiao Yang and the bull fell down. The chase between Xiao Yang and the giant ox devil ended here. When the golden light dispersed, Xiao Yang turned into the original shape. He couldn't help but breathe a sigh in his mouth, shook his slightly numb palm, and then looked at Qingtian Nyomor. He threw a wooden box to the latter, and Xiao Yang said loudly, "All right, I'll give it back to you. I know you're okay. Get up." As Xiao Yang's voice fell, the body of Optimus Oxdevil also squirmed, and soon turned into a human shape. He was naked and had a pair of slightly curved ox horns on his head. When the wooden box fell, he quickly took it in his arms and looked at the Quilingji in it. Then he looked at Xiao Yang with his eyebrows and eyes and said angrily, "Smelly boy, you don't refine pills, you don't buy medicine, and you rob my baby. You play with me as a monkey, and the imperial pill, give it to me. You said you'd give it to me if you caught up." Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang glanced non-committally, raised his eyes, looked back, and said with a smile, "Things have been returned to you. As for what I said, if I don't take the initiative to stop, do you think I can catch up with me with your speed? Cut, I don't care. Anyway, I've caught up with you. You can't keep your word." The bull spat lightly, put a thick-skinned appearance on his face, and said to Xiao Yang. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang turned his eyes slightly and said with a smile, "Okay, I can give you the pill, but you have to answer my question first." The bull looked suspiciously at Xiao Yang, held the wooden box in his hands and hesitated. Then he nodded and said, "You ask. In the periphery of Shaolin Mountains, there can be warcraft that is good at speed. Its strength is about the middle of the 8-star and a half Emperor. The faster the better." When the bull heard the speech, the muscles at the corners of his mouth could not help twitching, and his heart could not help scolding. In front of him, this guy wanted to practice his body method and fighting skills. His face was extremely reluctant to turn his mouth, but the bull couldn't put any imperial pill in his heart. He had to sigh bitterly in his heart. After a moment, his face showed a thoughtful expression. After a little consideration, he said, "Yes, and his speed is frightening." Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang couldn't help but show a surprise in his eyes and hurriedly asked, "Where is it?" "In the southwest, there is a lake, which is its territory." Manu's voice fell. Xiao Yang turned quickly and wanted to fly away in the direction Manu said. "Wait, Dan." Whoosh dash. Before the words fell, a streamer quickly shot at the giant ox demon. The latter held it in his hand and spread it out. It was really a good imperial pill. When Optimus Bull Demon looked up again, Xiao Yang had disappeared into the sky. Seeing this, the bull's eyes flashed, and a joking smile came up at the corners of his mouth. When he turned back, he said in a low voice, "Ha ha, running so fast, I haven't had time to tell you that the guy's strength is in the 9-star and half Emperor." The scorching sun seemed to burn up the clouds in the sky. Only looking at the horizon at the end of my line of sight, there were a few scattered clouds floating in the ocean. Here, the sky seemed to be washed away by heavy rain, just like a mirror. Looking down, I was surprised to find that under the sky, the heavy forests gradually faded, and in the mountains and forests below, there was a wide lake. The lake lasted thousands of miles, and the lake surface was calm and flawless. The deep lake water seemed to be a mirror, echoing each other in sunny weather. If you only looked at the lake water and the sky overhead, for a time, it can confuse black and white. It's hard to tell which is the sky and which is the lake. At this time, on the far side of the sky and over the vast forest sea, there was a hurricane like a tsunami that swept here quickly. The hurricane swept across the sky, and the residual power brought by it turned into a high tree wave on the forest sea. The waves followed the steps of the hurricane and rushed towards the lake at the moment. Looking carefully, at the front end of the hurricane, like the forefront of a ship-like storm, a man in black with a huge foot was rushing towards this side. In a short moment, the man in black robe had stood right above the lake. Looking between them, Xiao Yang's figure was reflected both in the sky and in the lake like a mirror. Looking at the calm lake below, Xiao Yang's white palm slowly climbed up the ruler handle. It gave him a different feeling here. "Hey, dead cow spirit, dare to play brain with me. The strength of this big guy is not an 8-star and a half Emperor." Xiao Yang's eyes narrowed falsely, and he cursed the previous Optimus monster in a low voice, but a hot flame burst out in Xiao Yang's eyes. Although the guy in the water is not weak, under the exploration of Xiao Yang's soul power, Xiao Yang has understood each other's strength. In the early days of the 9-star and half Emperor, and the fighting spirit in his body still seems vain and uncertain. It seems like he has just broken through the 9 stars, which is just good for Xiao Yang. Hey, you really gave me a big gift." At the same time, Xiao Yang's arm pulled out fiercely, and the Xian heavy ruler was suddenly pulled out. The sound of the breaking wind suddenly sounded, and the originally calm lake below also threw up a circle of subtle ripples. The spread of ripples also completely broke the original tranquility of the lake. Human. You came to the king's territory and pulled out your weapons. Is this provoking the king?" Suddenly, like a thundering sound, it came out from under the lake. At the same time, the lake surface where the ripples had not dispersed began to stir up. With several explosions, on the lake surface, thick water columns rose into the sky. Soon, a large conical sharp corner rushed out of the lake, followed by the huge body of Warcraft. Nearly half of the body of Warcraft is above the water. The whole body looks like a big snake. On the back of the big snake, it is closely covered with a layer of solid huge snake scales, but on the belly of the big snake, it is different. Shallow gullies go deep into the water and look like whales. The most strange thing is that on the top of the big snake, it turned out to have a long sharp corner. "Oh, narwhal snake, hey, I didn't expect to meet this ancient species here." Seeing this, Xiao Yang could not help but make a noise. The narwhal snake in front of him also surprised him. Narwhal snake, as a snake Warcraft, was originally unknown, but because of its single horn, this special race has gradually made some statements in snake Warcraft. Of course, in addition to the unicorn, the narwhal snake also has the ancient blood of snake Warcraft. Although there are not many, it is enough to make them have a kind of pressure in the face of other snake Warcraft. This is just like the special of Xian in the Taishu ancient dragon family. In general, this narwhal snake should have been erased from the snake family thousands of years ago because of its individual particularity. However, it was unexpected that it would be met by Xiao Yang today. I don't know whether it is good luck or something else. Now that you know my identity, get out of here. I just broke through and don't want to kill. If I don't want to die, get out. Otherwise, I'll eat you today. Refining you is also the nourishment for my strength. The narwhal snake's huge water blue eyes stared at Xiao Yang. Although the words in his mouth were fierce, he could always feel a sense of danger in the human in front of him, which made him afraid of Xiao Yang in front of him. "Hey, why are you in such a hurry to drive me away? I only know the name of narwhal snake in ancient books. As for the real strength, I'm not lucky to see it. But since I see you today, I can't leave easily. Therefore, I'd like to invite you to compete with me." It seemed that Xiao Yang saw the fear in the other party's heart, but the corner of his mouth was hooked, showing a joking smile. Coupled with his tone of voice, it made the narwhal snake afraid to be careless. He immediately snorted coldly and roared. As I said, I don't want to fight today. Go away. I'm going to shut up. While talking, the narwhal snake originally stared at Xiao Yang's eyes, but it also unconsciously moved away, as if it was covering up the strange feeling in his heart. Unexpectedly, the narwhal snake was so timid. Xiao Yang was also speechless. He turned his mouth and frowned at the narwhal snake. He said impatiently, "There's not much nonsense. I'm here to challenge you today. You're a 9-star-and-a-half emperor. Why don't you even dare to fight me, a 5-star-and-a-half emperor? Cut, what's the matter with my 9-star-and-a-half emperor? If you're not stupid, you must have this level of strength to fight with you. I fight with you when I'm stupid." Xiao Yang's words fell, but the narwhal snake blurted out his shameless words decisively, which immediately made Xiao Yang helpless. The prepared words in his mouth were also blocked by the impeccable words of the big guy in front of him. He coughed violently for a few times. Xiao Yang hurriedly thought about what to do, but when he thought of his head, Xiao Yang found that he had nothing to do with everyone in front of him. Xiao Yang doesn't even doubt that if he takes action at this time, this guy will hide at the bottom of the lake without hesitation and will never come out again. At that time, Xiao Yang is afraid it's impossible to annoy him. After a while of thinking, Xiao Yang said with a wry smile, "Alas. It seems that the old method will be used again. Cough, or else, I'll bet you that I'll bet on an imperial pill. As long as you can catch me, I'll give you the pill." Coughed twice. Xiao Yang thought his words were strange. Unexpectedly, someone in the world would pay for a fight. Hearing the words from Xiao Yang's mouth, the narwhal snake was also stunned. Xiao Yang's words made it feel like a fool. Roar! With a low roar, the narwhal snake turned a big white eye at Xiao Yang. Then his huge body twisted and wanted to return to the bottom of the lake again. Seeing this, the muscles on Xiao Yang's face couldn't help pumping wildly and biting his teeth. Just as the narwhal snake was about to return to the bottom of the lake, Xiao Yang spoke again and said in a high voice, Two imperial pills, as long as you can touch my clothes, pills, you can take them." At the same time, Xiao Yang turned his hand, and 2 round pills the size of longan suddenly appeared in Xiao Yang's hand. With the appearance of pills, a strong smell of pills immediately spread in all directions. At the moment when the narwhal snake entered the water, he also smelled the fragrance of the pill. Suddenly, the diving body suddenly solidified, and circles of water splashed violently around him. At the next moment, the narwhal snake's diving body suddenly rushed out of the lake. His huge eyes were full of longing and stared at Xiao Yang. To be exact, it should be the 2 imperial pills in his hands. With these 2 imperial pills, narwhal snake has no doubt that its cultivation will be completely stable in the early days of the 9-star-and-a-half emperor, which will undoubtedly save it a long period of cultivation time in the future. Roar! That's what you said, boy. Don't blame me for bullying you. Although he saw Xiao Yang's extraordinary, the narwhal snake was also confident. With his speed of 9-stars-and-a-half emperors, he could surpass the man who looked like a mole ant in front of him. What's more, the effect of this pill on it is obvious. If you can get it, it will not let go easily. With such simple conditions, narwhal snake will not waste such a good opportunity in vain. Hey, you're really an eye-opener for money. Don't worry. Since I said so, I won't go back. Besides, it's a big deal. Just fight with me. Anyway, you're really afraid of me, a 5-star-and-a-half emperor? Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang said with a joking smile. Seeing the joking look on Xiao Yang's face, the narwhal snake turned his eyes at the latter again. Immediately, he snorted coldly and said, "Boy, the pill is ready, my king, but I'm coming to get it." Roar! With a loud roar, the whole lake suddenly turned violently, and a shocking wave surged violently. The huge body of the narwhal snake also suddenly swept into the void. The huge whale-like tail came at Xiao Yang with terrible strength. And until now, Xiao Yang could really see the whole appearance of the big guy in front of him. The huge snake body is longer than the one exposed to the lake. The snake body is densely covered with smooth snake scales. With the twist of the snake body, it reflects dazzling light, like sharp eyes, which makes people shudder. Seeing this, Xiao Yang smiled with satisfaction. This is the result he wants. When the huge tail like a cattail fan came, Xiao Yang moved. When his body shape was twisted, the sky-dew step under his feet was displayed in an instant. The painted black figure flickered on the void like a shadow, which was difficult to capture his body shape. At the same time, the snake tail that bombarded Xiao Yang hard also swept hard in the void and brought a gust of wind, but it didn't touch Xiao Yang's body at all. Seeing that Xiao Yang escaped his attack so easily, the narwhal snake's eyes could not help showing a surprised color. Unexpectedly, a 5-star and a half emperor could have such a fast speed. Although he was very surprised, the narwhal snake quickly raised the fighting spirit in his body for 2 imperial pills. His huge body suddenly turned around and surrounded around to form a sphere, which quickly surrounded Xiao Yang, who was constantly flashing in the void. How can you hide now? The narwhal snake shouted angrily and quickly turned around Xiao Yang's body. The narrow space was also reduced again and again, making Xiao Yang in it unavoidable. Seeing this, Xiao Yang smiled. While the space around him had not been completely squeezed, Xiao Yang's hands changed rapidly and played out one seal formula after another. At the same time, in front of him, a black tent also condensed. 6 tabernacles. The sound of cheering in his heart fell, and the soles of Xiao Yang's feet stepped out. Before the terrible pressure around him came, Xiao Yang's body also disappeared in an instant. Aware of Xiao Yang's invisible figure, the narwhal snake suddenly made a sound. The next moment, when it turned its head fiercely, it saw Xiao Yang's body, which had appeared in the void behind him. It seems that your move doesn't work for me. Xiao Yang smiled and said. The moment the narwhal snake turned its head, his eyes were filled with incomparable shock. How possible? It's hard to imagine that the black-robed human in front of us can escape its seamless death entanglement. You know, as long as we are trapped in the attack just now, we can't get out unless we forcibly break the body of the narwhal snake. But how can Xiao Yang do it? Nothing is impossible. Your move may be useful to others, but it has no effect on me. Xiao Yang chuckled. His index finger stretched out and gently crossed the void in front of him. Immediately after that, as Xiao Yang's fingertips crossed the void, there was a wormhole several inches wide on the void space. Of course, this small wormhole alone can't do anything, but in the eyes of narwhal snake, it is enough to make the latter feel extremely shocked. This is a space crack. No, this is a void avenue. The pupil in the narwhal snake's eye suddenly shrinks to the size of the tip of a needle, and the words are full of unbelievable. Indeed, it is completely impossible for a semi-emperor to understand the power of the road, even in anyone's heart. Xiao Yang smiled non-committally and said nothing. Boy, you cheat. The scene was silent for a moment. Then, the shocked narwhal snake suddenly burst out in anger, the voice fell, and the expression on Xiao Yang's face became stunned. Then, the narwhal snake continued. Boy, according to your playing method, how can I touch you? With the power of the road, you can easily avoid my attack. Are you playing with me sincerely? Xiao Yang was stunned. When he looked up, he saw that this guy had to dive back again. Immediately, he couldn't help feeling helpless for this guy's glass heart. It's too easy to be defeated. I really don't know where the strength of the 9-star and half emperor has been refined. That's not the case. It's a big deal. I don't need to use the void avenue. Let's go down now. Xiao Yang glanced helplessly. Who knows why the snake is so timid? He had to restrain his power again. However, at the moment when the words fell in Xiao Yang's mouth, the narwhal snake who had just turned his head suddenly gave a dark smile. At the moment when the words fell in Xiao Yang's mouth, he threw himself at Xiao Yang. The breaking wind of hiss continues to ring through the heaven and earth. In the sky, a huge snake is chasing a dark shadow like a bone maggot. Although the human shadow erupts at full speed and runs wildly between the heaven and earth, the giant snake is still chasing, and the distance between the two has been shortened from the initial 100 feet to more than 10 feet at the moment. I believe that in a short time, the figure will be caught up by the snake, and it is difficult to predict what will happen to the figure. Bang! With an earth-shaking roar, Xiao Yang's body was hit by the sudden snake tail. His thin body fell like a star, falling uncontrollably towards the lake below. With the water column rising one by one, Xiao Yang's body smashed into the lake below. The waves were turbulent and splashed. Xiao Yang only felt that his body was shrouded by a vast pressure, and there was a surge of qi and blood in his body. However, due to the situation at the moment, Xiao Yang forced himself to resist. Unexpectedly, the speed of the narwhal snake was much more terrible than Xiao Yang thought. Although this guy's speed in the void is no faster than that of the eagle that day, it is undoubtedly much faster than that of Xiao Yang. Perhaps it is because he has been underwater all the year round. When this guy is exposed to the void, the constraints of heaven and earth on him suddenly seem to be much smaller, so that the speed of its outbreak is difficult to compare with that of Xiao Yang. It's a little similar to Xiao Yang's state of carrying Xian heavy ruler. Ha ha, boy, you said, bring the pill. At this time, the huge body of Narwhal Snake also rushed into the bottom of the lake, circled around Xiao Yang, and laughed at Xiao Yang. Listening to the latter's arrogant laughter, Xiao Yang's heart is not angry but happy. Although this guy's eyes are all in Xiao Yang's pill, why isn't Xiao Yang's purpose of this trip to take advantage of this big guy? With a wave of his big hand, a light suddenly shot at the Narwhal Snake at the bottom of the lake. The latter was also happy to catch it carefully. At the same time, Xiao Yang moved his body and rushed out of the bottom of the lake. Standing in the void, Xiao Yang's throat rolled slightly, and a trace of blood flowed from the corners of his mouth, but there was more fanaticism in the pair of dark pupils. With his palm raised, Xiao Yang took out the heavy ruler behind his back, turned his wrist and put it into the ring. Since the Xian heavy ruler was integrated into those fiery black iron, its weight has been greatly improved. Therefore, even today's Xiao Yang has a lot of pressure to carry it. At the moment, taking down the Xian heavy ruler, Xiao Yang immediately felt light all over, and the flow speed of fighting qi in his body also obviously accelerated a lot. This feeling of long absence made Xiao Yang feel a little warm in his heart. Poof! However, at this time, the Narwhal Snake suddenly rushed out of the lake. As soon as it was born, a pair of eyes with three people with Xiao Yang's feet stared at Xiao Yang, howled angrily and scolded Xiao Yang. Boy, why is there one and another? You promised me 2 imperial pills. Ha, I announce that the rules have been changed. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang smiled faintly, his body twisted slightly, and the sound of bone collision suddenly sounded crackling. Boy, you. Don't worry about the fire, wait until I finish. Without waiting for the Narwhal Snake to spit out his words, Xiao Yang interrupted it with a word, smiled and continued. From now on, as long as you touch my body once, I'll give you an imperial pill. The number of times is unlimited. Xiao Yang's voice fell, and the huge body of the Narwhal Snake suddenly stiffened. When it reacted, it couldn't help making an excited roar in its mouth. It looked down and locked Xiao Yang immediately. The excited roar in its mouth. Roar. Boy, that's what you said. Don't cheat then, do what you say. Xiao Yang grinned. In the smile at the corners of his mouth, there was also a strong sense of fire. Hiss dash. The next moment, with a burst of violent breaking wind, the Narwhal Snake's huge body suddenly turned around and rushed over to Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang smiled faintly, his hands were negative, and his body stood upright in the void. When the Narwhal Snake came, a light flashed in the depths of his eyes. Xiao Yang's steps changed, and Tianjue's step broke out in an instant. Xiao Yang's body quickly flashed. More than a dozen residual shadows of Xiao Yang appeared in the vast sky. Seeing Xiao Yang's sudden change, the Narwhal Snake in the sky couldn't help but be a little chilly, but then, his body rushed forward again and rushed away at Xiao Yang like a black lightning. At this moment, Xiao Yang and the Narwhal Snake are all at full speed. One is like the wind, the flash is invisible, and the other is like lightning. Chasing and fleeing, he flashed over the vast sky. Occasionally, there will be some amazing laughter when there is a short collision. Of course, the interval of this short collision also gradually extends with the extension of time. The chase between the two also lasted until nearly half a month later. In half a month, Xiao Yang ran all over the sky, underground water and mountains. Of course, for the imperial pill in Xiao Yang's hand, the Narwhal Snake followed him without stinginess, destroying the beautiful scenery it had not enjoyed in ordinary days with its huge body. Of course, after half a month's catch-up, Tianjuebu broke out rapidly. Xiao Yang's control of Tianjuebu naturally improved rapidly. He also greatly improved his understanding of the wind-driven environment. However, the understanding belongs to the understanding. As for the breakthrough to the success of the wind-driven environment, this step seems to be far away. Bang! The violent banging made the earth within 100 feet tremble, but this time, it was not the Narwhal Snake that attacked Xiao Yang. On the contrary, Xiao Yang suddenly turned around and blocked the huge body of the Narwhal Snake with Yellow Spring Natural Anger and Yellow Spring Palm. Of course, it was harmless, but Xiao Yang didn't want to continue to be so boring. That's it. Tianjueba has really reached the bottleneck stage. At this stage, we can't borrow any external force. Except for the chance, it's natural to break through by force, which is not a good thing for cultivation. Roar. Boy, what do you want to do? Hehe, thank you for half a month. Xiao Yang smiled and arched his hand at the Narwhal Snake in front of him. Roar. What do you mean? It's time to leave. This pill is the last promise to you. The words fell down. Xiao Yang threw one of the last 3 imperial pills in his hand to the narwhal snake. Xiao Yang is a promise keeper. Although the snake is also for interests, he helped him anyway. Hey, boy, you are quite trustworthy. Although the snake doesn't believe in human beings, it also admires Xiao Yang's trustworthiness from the heart. Thank you for half a month. Xiao Yang nodded and arched his hand at the narwhal snake again. The latter laughed and didn't say much. Although Xiao Yang didn't say it clearly, he had noticed that Xiao Yang's speed was getting more and more terrible. The 5-star and half Emperor can have a speed beyond the reach of the 9-star and half Emperor. It's hard to imagine how terrible it would be if he reached the 9-star and half Emperor in the future. Xiao Yang Duo said a few words, and then he took out the Xian heavy ruler again and carried it on his back. It was not until now that narwhal snake found it. It seems that his speed has improved significantly since Xiao Yang's strange giant ruler disappeared last time. Without procrastination, Xiao Yang arched his hand at the narwhal snake for the 3rd time. The etiquette between the strong allows them to respect each other, so that they can match their friends when they meet next time. Maybe this is the so-called no fight and no acquaintance, although they didn't really move their hands. Haha, nice boy. What's your name? If you have something to do in the future, just come to me. Next time, I will never restrain my temper. Ha ha ha. Looking at Xiao Yang's disappearing back, the narwhal snake laughed. He had no friends in his life, but this human wearing a black robe and revealing a strange smell made him feel a special feeling for the first time. Xiao Yang. As the sound came into the narwhal snake's ear, the long conical sharp corner on the top of the narwhal snake suddenly cracked, and the broken parts fell into the mountains and forests below at any time. The lacquer black sharp corner on the top of the narwhal snake also changed into a long bone corner. The shape of the bone horn is like lightning. There are mysterious lines on it. The lines are scarlet like blood, revealing an endless smell of killing. At this moment, the pair of water blue pupils of narwhal snake turned into scarlet. This video will end here.